Glad we could help. Hey, Colin.
Hey, Colin's up there.
I basically told him he had no choice. He had to put the camera up.
He has zero choices.
Yeah.
I don't see Colin. Am I supposed to see him?
Can you see us two?
When you guys talk, I can see you.
Yeah, you'll see him when he talks.
Okay.
When I talk. Did you see
Okay.
me there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Gina, is your son going to be able to come aboard one of these days too?
Jason?
Yeah.
I think we're going to definitely bring him to the camp out or whatever upcoming investigation we may do. I don't know if he's going to get on the thing. We'll see.
Yeah. I was, whenever I did my show out there, I became friendly with a couple of people out there in California. And I had just mentioned that what we were doing. And they liked the idea about this family presence. They said it's something that you don't really see. So
Yes.
I'm trying to keep the buzz out there as much as humanly possible.
And I was thinking about that. And that's something you had brought up. With all the contacts between you and Colin, when we get ready to push this out there, we can, blanket it to everybody. Brian maybe would probably mention it on his podcast. Ken, Nick, they might mention it places, but there's other people, Andy on Facebook,
Sure.
we could probably, there's definitely a network to push it out there.
Well, without a doubt. Yeah.
Now tell us, Ron, about the whatever for monetization you were thinking of with
Right. Okay.
Lime.
So this was a while back. This was right before my dad died. So we're going back probably into October. And the producer that kind of runs the station that Lon Strickler was on had approached me, and he asked if I would be interested in doing a show for them. They needed content, and everybody on that network is monetized. I don't know how much, I don't know how all that stuff works or anything like that. But that's something that I didn't want to do ever on my own or anything like that. But that's something that I would like to bring to the table and say, hey, guys, look, Lon Strickler is not my buddy or anything like that. But it's not actually like the Lon Strickler show with Steve and Gina, Colin, and Ron. It's basically, it's going to be on that particular network.
Well, here's my thinking on the whole thing. I view doing the podcast and my other podcast stuff not as the moneymaker, but as the thing that supports and brings the expertise to the table for the things that bring in the money. Because I don't know how much we'd make or whatever. The benefit definitely is it's a known network and there's already subscribers and listeners.
Sure.
So there would probably be crossover. People would just start listening to ours right away. The downside, and I know this has happened to you guys before, is they kind of control us. And
They do.
That's to me, that's a bigger ick, because what if we go, we're going to go do an investigation or whatever, and somebody has to work and somebody doesn't feel good, so we just don't do an episode. They don't like those.
No, they do not like that. Exactly.
And
right.
what if we start saying something and they disagree and say, well, we don't want you to do that. Well, screw you guys.
Yeah, that's a great point. What I'm finding on this, for doing this for a few years, and really, I've not done any of my own podcast for a hell of a long time, because what happens is a lot of these quote unquote networks, these kind of serving platforms where you go under a banner, are highly, and I hate to talk politics, but they're highly conservative individuals. And it really does, like, I'm always stirring the pot in some way, and then I'm always kind of like the bad guy out and everything like that. But the Strickler people approach me, the people from that network approach me specifically because they're more liberal bent. That's the reason why they
got it.
It's difficult because, I had posted something recently on my Facebook page about racism. And I find it hard to believe that people can argue about racism nowadays. I don't even want to be involved with these people. But this is the paranormal community we're talking about. I am just simply looking for a way for us to get our show up, because I think it's going to be a quality show,
right,
into the most people's town. I like your idea too, Stephen, about putting as many in the can as humanly possible. because then if the case is, if one of us work or can't make it, we have fallbacks.
Right.
So like 4 or 5 shows and say, okay, we've got a month's worth of stuff right here.
Right.
Here you go. And then we just go along that way.
And so something like that network, I don't know if they would agree to this, and I bet they probably wouldn't. I would be more comfortable and willing to do it if it's something where it's almost like a syndication thing. Well, we've had our podcast for 6 months and they're quote unquote syndicating it. So they're getting the reruns. So they get them 6 months behind. They're
Exactly.
running them. And if they don't want an episode or they don't want to run an episode, that would then be their choice.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd be much more into that than something else. Cause I think with the world and the things and the people we know, we can get the word out. We can get traction on this without needing to go through a network.
Sure. I agree.
That's my big thought. And heck, speaking of Brian and that, I bet we could probably get on Brian's show in just a couple minutes, interview or something, but just the fact that we're going to have this Kenny Irish and we're going to get Stan, it's the same as my Wordsmith podcast.
Right.
I get the word out because every single person I interview goes and tells all their people.
Well, that's right. And the higher profile people that we get, the more people that are going to follow us at that time. I don't know how to reach out to Megan Fox, but I did contact her on both Twitter and on Instagram. Not sure if she would get back to me. But it would be nice if we could get some high level person,
Here's, you may not have seen it, Ron, but there's this guy on YouTube that does interviews, but he does them while doing a hot wing challenge, and he built that guy.
Yes.
He started out with just some like local celebrities, and then they knew some people who were a little more celebrity. So he worked his way up to where now he gets, Chris Evans and crap.
That's right.
That's how we would get Megan Fox. We talked to Stan, we talked to Kenny, and then we talked to Walmsley, and we keep moving up the chain.
Right.
Colin died.
Yeah, but with Colin's connections, though, I mean, he could probably get Ken Gearhart on anytime, get Nick Redfern on anytime, and those are the kind of people that we need to get. But the paranormal is becoming it's para entertainment now, and the entertainment side of it is really the ones that I'm shooting for.
Right. Oh, he's out. Hold on. He's over there yelling, "Hey!" So, and honestly, I think we can. Hey, Colin, welcome back. We were talking about you. I think with the connections, we can get enough followers. What we need is a name, so we can make T-shirts.
Yes, that's without a doubt. We need T-shirts. We can do bumper stickers. We can do a whole bunch of things. As we had discussed on our last program, and I think in all of us, there's a little bit of P.T. Barnum in all of us. So I'm trying to think of ways really to look at things outside of the box and try to incorporate so many different ideas that we can. So like whenever I was out in California, I talked to a lot of people about getting things, and there's not a lot of new ideas out there. Now, one of the ideas that I come up with, but I don't know how to go about selling it, but it would be cool to, to bring this on board and kind of have like an umbrella a think tank that we can all kind of invest into. And it doesn't take anything money. This is just intellectual things that we can kind of, approach and say, this is brought to you by us. But one of the things I had considered a while back, and I would like to see this program as well too, is based upon like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, except it's a paranormal bachelorette.
You're thinking of yourself there, Ron.
Yeah, well, I am, but nobody wants a 51-year-old guy anymore. So I'm going to think about these younger guys. But no, I mean, everybody gets a black rose handed out kind of thing. And the way that you weed the potential people out is you take them on various expeditions together. So you go into a haunted house or UFO. See how this works? See, this would be great for sci-fi or something like that. But that's one of the ideas. And that's one of those things where it could bring a lot of people, because one of the things that they told me is that very few of these shows are designed for women. There's very few shows out there. This is for a very specific demographic. It's for men. but they really cannot find shows that are geared to women. And I thought this might be an excellent way to doing
Ron,
this.
Ron, you and I think could be dangerous together.
We could be extremely dangerous because nobody else is thinking about this stuff, Stephen. And that is the whole thing. I don't want to see the same old things on there all the time. You get somebody out there that's single and you put, 15 girls at them, let them go out, and every week they keep on whittling it down. I would love to see something like that.
We could do a test of it, a test run, as if we're really doing it for episodes. It could be like a spin-off podcast, not, normal podcast episodes or
Yes.
anything. But
Frankie could be the
yes,
King.
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Wait, I didn't hear what he said. What happened?
We can get Frankie to be the first contestant.
Okay.
What do you think, sweetheart?
I think Frankie would like to do something like that. Yeah.
I think that would be interesting. We could, and again, we could do it as a side thing from this
Mhm.
and plan it over just several weekends.
Without a doubt.
Put an ad out.
That's
you
right.
know.
That's right.
Okay, let's work on that. I like that
Yeah.
idea. That sounds fun.
As long as you have a sizzle reel, that's what these people are looking for right now. I think it's so cheap to do as well too. This is not an expensive thing. We're not jetting them off to the Turks or the Grand Goes or anything like that. We're actually just keeping local, and especially if we do something just in Ohio where we go to a couple
Right.
places in Ohio.
What the penitentiary?
That's all absolutely.
Um,
The ghost hunt at Beaver Creek, Bigfoot expedition in the Salt Fork, that kind of stuff.
What were you gonna say, Colin?
I was just gonna let you guys know that I'm like lagging really behind, and y'all are like
He's
cutting
frozen.
up pretty
Yeah.
bad. That's why I left.
Yeah. What is that? Your video doing that? Try turning your video off for now. Turn your mic on too.
I'm
Oh,
gonna keep it muted because I move around in my chair and it's squeaky.
That's fine. So is it just the video that's killing it?
hey guys, give me 1 second. I have to tend to my boy before we start.
It
Sure,
actually appears to be.
All right, then Colin, let's play with that Sunday, Monday when you're off. And let's see if there's anything we can do, lower quality or something.
I'm not off for several weeks.
All right, well, let's see if we can find some time. We've got sweetheart. Did you get a chance to look over the text when you were really busy that day and see any of the name suggestions?
I did look at, yeah.
If you
I
have
mean-
any suggestions.
No, I mean, no, not really. Hold on.
Oh, that's what you used to do. Okay.
What's he doing?
He said he might need hardwired back into the router. That's what he used to do for his podcast. And I wouldn't doubt it. That's easy. We got wires.
Okay, folks. I am back. That should be the last little.
No problem. It's that's part of the family thing, right?
That's
That-
right.
That's what I always say on my Discovered Wordsmiths. I get a lot of parents, and they're like, "Well, my kids might interrupt or my dogs." I'm like, "Hey, that's you're a
that's
new
part of it.
author." That was
That's
part of
part of
what
it.
I wanted to show, that there are other authors out there that aren't making $1 million.
That's
So-
right. That's right. It becomes a labor of love instead of a labor of income. But
Right.
but you get to a certain age where you'd like to have some income rolling in. You don't have to work anymore. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. So I did get the sizzle reel started.
Nice.
Based on our first talk when we were just stuff. But and I got the music put into it, but that's part of the reason. If we come up with a name and then I want to find somebody to make caricatures of all of us and then use that as the logo, so we have it for the podcast, we'll put it in the
Yes,
sizzle
yes.
reel, and then we'll have a full thing. So
Oh, this
You
would
could
be
see
perfect.
if Rack would do the character.
Repeat that, Colin.
Caricatures. We could see if Rat could do the caricatures.
Yeah, we could. That'd be great. I did email him. I was looking at getting him for the Oddish Quester books, but he never got back with me. So we'll have to try again.
Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah. Yeah. Just let me know. I'm very willing to any kind of investment into this is necessary, because I really think that we have something here. I think this is something new. It's something fresh, and a lot of people will watch this, so I'm looking forward to it.
I agree. That's the sweet spot. You have to have something new and fresh with the same stuff they're used to.
That's right. That's right. And speaking of the sweet spot, I'm going to have to talk to your sister too about producing our squash sauce as well too. See, now that's the other thing. If we can come up with a name that we can have the squash sauce under that name.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
we could do other, we could be, we could have at our tables, start going to cons and whatever. We could have food, we could have cookies and stuff,
Oh.
and be known be known as that. Oh, I wonder what they're going to bring this time.
Exactly. I thought about buying a food truck, and it's interesting that you guys are in Ohio, because I thought about buying a food truck in Ohio, because in Pennsylvania, there's all these kind of regulations revolving transportation. So if I can get a vehicle out there in Ohio and have it registered in Ohio, it's a lot less stringent than it is in Pennsylvania, mind you. Okay. But, wouldn't that be kind of cool to kind of pull on in, and your paranormal pizza or whatever you have, and it has you could have a little Bigfoot, a chupacabra, and a Loch Ness monster just painted around the whole entire thing. And I was thinking, if we could get a UFO up on top that has the lights going around, and a little alien sitting up there with a burger in his hand.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what I was thinking, that if we come up with a squash sauce, we can actually have the sauce put on our burgers, and then that's how we sell that as well too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just as an interesting side note, Alan, who I do my geek podcast with, got a hold of me that he was talking to somebody that wrote a book that's about the making of George Romero's Season of the Witch. And I'm like, well, when I talk to her, maybe I'll see if she wants to talk to us
absolutely. Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's what I said. And we had talked about this before. We could talk to authors. We can talk to people that are in movies. It runs the gamut of what we can talk about, because we're just not that one type of thing.
Right. And I like that.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
And we confirmed, I think I sent you guys the reservations for Beaver Creek.
Yep.
I pulled out my camera, and I've been exploring the settings that I've never looked at.
Okay.
Because I want to be able to talk technically about what settings are best for daytime, nighttime, and why they might be better for trying to capture something. I mean, that's supposed to be my job. So
yes, it's gonna be great.
And I'm also working on the Raspberry Trail Cam. So at one point, talk about that a little bit.
Perfect.
The tech. So
now, do we have the tech? Well, do you have the technology to pull up maybe 4 or 5 videos that are on YouTube and stuff, and then we could go through a tech show where we kind of analyze it, and you talk about what kind of, especially if it's CGI or if it looks like it's hoax or anything. I would love to do a show like that, kind of like a paranormal factor thing.
I got to look into it here with Zoom. I'm pretty sure Colin actually might even know about that. But I had talked about.
I don't know anything about.
Okay, I will investigate and figure out how to do that. I know we can.
Yeah.
And along with that, I had the idea of showing how easy or hard it is to fake a video.
Perfect.
And have that, and it doesn't necessarily have to. We could talk about it and that, but put the series or the attempts up on a YouTube channel, because all of these podcast episodes can go on our YouTube channel also.
Absolutely love the idea.
Yep. That's something I want to do soon, because I can do that outside of us doing any of the other episodes.
Well, sure. Absolutely.
So
no, but I think that's something just to add a little bit of flavor, because some people just like to look at videos. Some people like to do this and some people like to do that. And we want to give them as much pablum as they can possibly, and those little infant stomachs of theirs.
And even when me and Gina are watching stuff, we even say, I don't know, that one seems faked, or what could they fake that? And a lot of the video ones I think are much harder to fake than people realize.
See, these are good ideas. These are good.
And then in my opinion, it's showing, look, we are showing you how to fake it, how it could be done, because I mean, our integrity is we don't want to fake it. We don't want to say, oh my gosh, I saw something move. It must be Bigfoot.
Yeah.
That's not what we want. And I
Right.
think the authenticity and integrity of doing stuff like that. And even like there's that show I saw Gina pointed out, I think on Discovery with they proof or fake or something like that. But they find videos on the internet that are popular and then go and try and prove that it's a
Right.
fake.
Sure.
So that's where I got the idea.
Yep, I love that idea. And there's the one out there right now on the Travel Channel with Brian Cano and Ronnie LeBlanc, and every single video they put up, even though it's been debunked about 10 years ago, every single thing that they see is like, oh, I cannot believe, this is alien invasion or whatever. You can tell that they're being paid. So there's not one fake thing on that. It's all like actual true to happen. And it'll be kind of cool to give them a different angle and say, hey, this might not be exactly correct.
Right. Agreed. Okay. Any more business before we do an episode?
I am ready.
You ready, bud? Can't see. Colin.
Yeah, I think so. I changed my internet connection, so hopefully it'll be a bit more stable.
Okay. We'll get the cable out and we'll play with the video a bit. We'll do without your lovely face for tonight.
Thank God.
All right. So welcome once again, gang, to another episode. And I can't tell you the name because we haven't come up with it yet. So as soon as we do, we will have an official name. By the time this goes out to the public, we'll have something.
It will have a name. It will have a banner that comes up and the words will be spiraling around together. So yeah.
You need the name before you can buy your own jet. So
That's
come up
right.
with that.
Although we have a theme song, is that correct? So we can come up with a theme song.
Yeah, we do. We have official theme song music that we could play.
And that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Oh, that's easy. But speaking of the theme song, before we talk about your upcoming talk, Ron, I must correct a travesty from our last episode.
Uh-oh.
You asked me what music I would put on a desert island.
Yes.
And I woke up at 3:00 in the morning and went, oh my God, I totally did not say two of my all-time best and favorites. And I feel like there was some bad karma gods going on.
Sure.
I was struck by lightning because out of everybody, these would have been the two I have to have. So number 2 in a very close second would be Rush, mostly Hold Your Fire. Yeah. Why, Gina, why didn't I mention Rush?
No, I
was waiting for that.
Yeah.
I wanted to call you out on it, but keep going.
You should have. If not Hold Your Fire, Moving Pictures, if I only had to narrow it down. But, and Colin knows exactly where this is going to go. Gina, you know where this one's going to go. The one I don't believe I didn't even mention, and I am in such shame for this, is I did not say Def Leppard, and I didn't say Hysteria.
There you go.
Any of the Leopard, but I was like, oh my God, because there is no other group I have listened to more than Def Leppard. And the Hysteria album. What, Gina?
I yelled at you, Dream You.
Oh, well, that's why I must have woke up.
Yeah.
So, there's the travesty.
Oh my goodness. But no, hey, these are good things to have though, because, as you're sitting there in the fetal position, slowly dying from lack of water, you can think Hysteria, that's the thing. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So onto the real topic of our episode.
This is the real topic, Stephen. This is the real topic.
It's all me.
That's right. It's all you.
So, Ron, what we wanted to talk about tonight is you have an upcoming talk. You're going to speak to a group of people. Why don't you tell us about that? Like when it is, where it is, and then what it's about. Give us a little bit so we can rip it apart.
So as we break the doldrums of winter and as we finally the proverbial Punxsutawney Phil showing his head and seeing his shadow or not seeing his shadow, we are breaking this COVID winter as well too, hopefully. So guess what? On May the 15th, and I'm reading this right here off of the phone, I'm going to be at the Southwest Pennsylvania Haunted Con. And it's going to be in Greene County, Pennsylvania. So that's actually really close to Ohio, as a matter of fact. So if any of our Ohio listeners are out there, it's a quick trip on over. And
when is that?
What's that? When is it?
When was it?
It's going to be May the 15th.
Okay.
Yeah. So close. and I'm going to be talking about On Witches, which is a book I just published last year. And this is the last book in my On series. I'm done with it. And I thought, instead of going the way of monsters, because what I always do in my books is I always try to get the human aspect of it. It's kind of like whenever we look at these archetypes and we get right into the very nature of everything, usually when we talk about werewolves or we talk about, vampires or any of these kind of things that go bump in the night, there's usually that gotcha moment in there whenever you reach over and you pull off the rubber mask and it's a human being underneath that. You know what I mean? That's usually what happens. People like to project themselves onto things that they cannot explain and personify parts of nature that they cannot control. So I thought that I would end this series with The Witch, which is blatantly human and usually overtly feminine as well too. And I thought that we would kind of shed some light on the idea of the witch and how they went from being something that was seen as a blessing in society to becoming a monster in the more misogynistic, through religion in the Middle Ages on up into the present time.
So it's a historical type talk for the
It
most
is.
part.
It is. And I'm going to point out some things because it's interesting that Pennsylvania, they did have a very famous witch trial, and it was presided over by William Penn himself. He found the woman that was being accused of being a witch, that she was guilty of being a witch, but she was not guilty of witchcraft, and that was the big punishable thing. Being a witch was one thing, but the craft itself, the art of the spell making, involves some sort of interaction with the demonic. And that is what she was found not guilty of. However, being a witch, she still had her lands confiscated and all that other kind of stuff, and she had to be fined. But that is really kind of the crux of everything.
Let me interrupt real quick question.
Yeah, sure.
So she was found to be a witch,
Yes.
guilty of that.
Yes.
What exactly did that mean? What did a witch do if they didn't do witchcraft?
Right. And that is the thing. So as I dig deeper into this and I look at various other things in colonial America, there's a very famous case down in Virginia of Grace Sherwood. If you ever go to Virginia Beach, you always see a sign that says Witch Duck Road. And that is where a woman by the name of Grace Sherwood was ducked into the water. She unfortunately bobbed to the surface. She was not killed, however. She was imprisoned. She eventually got her freedom. And what's interesting about this case is she sued the government of Virginia to get her lands back that were confiscated. So there's a movie in there waiting to be made, but she's a character. But usually what happens whenever you are accused of being a witch, almost always, 90% of the time, witch is almost synonymous with just simply being a woman. It's one of those things that it's just part of who you are. And the idea that a woman can be opened up to witchcraft is something that's been with us since the Old Testament days, something, that old. So it's always just aligned with the feminine and what the feminine capabilities are.
So I mean, from my knowledge, somebody could have been a witch. It was the person, a healer. A lot of times, wasn't it? It was the healer, the person that gave the erectile dysfunction medicine and all that jazz, the love potions.
Yeah. Again, almost solely the responsibility of a woman, a midwife. These things would seem like magic, wouldn't they? Think about a baby that is being born breech and somebody that is very skilled in a time of, before a pre-scientific age is able to get the baby out and the mother still survives. That would seem like magic. Or taking a fever down. This would all seem like magic. And I think that goes in with the guise of the witch as well, too. They're able to do things that seem inhuman or supernatural. But as long as you don't employ any kind of dark arts, then you're not, called of being somebody that uses witchcraft at that point.
I think it's also worth mentioning as well that a lot of the times accusations of being a witch would be accompanied by people not if said woman being accused of being a witch oftentimes was also a woman who was not married, didn't often fit the typical gender roles of a woman at the time. And once Christianity got bigger, a lot of the times it was seen as the healing that they were doing, when that was an element, was seen as spitting in the face of God, because only God and ones chosen by God could heal, and that was very much against the church if you're a woman and not chosen by God to heal.
Right. Great point, Colin. And that's exactly what I do cover as I go through the history. When we look at the Witch of Endor in the Old Testament, she acts as a medium between the world of the living and the world of the dead. She does something that the priests cannot do. You know, there's something going on here that these women are capable of doing, that they have access to a power that those in charge simply do not have access to. And that's absolutely the case. You can pray over somebody all that you want, but unless somebody acts upon certain things, then the miracle doesn't take place. And if a woman is able to do something that a man is incapable of doing, then she is seen as something supernatural, you see. And Colin, that's absolutely the case. When we look at the Salem, the Salem witch trials in 1692, the vast majority of these people, these women, were widowed. They had a lot of land, they had a lot of money, but they had no man to stand up for them. Same way with Grace Sherwood in Virginia as well too. She was widowed. She never remarried. She had a great deal of land. And what you do is you simply come in there and you can confiscate all of her property simply by accusing her of witchcraft. That's all that it takes, and we see this time and time again. And as I go through history, my book concludes with witchcraft in the modern era, in places like Africa and in places like India. The idea of witchcraft is running rampant because you are introducing religions, and some of these religions that are being introduced have been introduced, less than 100 years ago in some instances. So we're talking about Christianity being thrown into a very volatile situation. You have to talk about the socioeconomic factors as well too. But many, many poor people now are being accused of being witches or demonically possessed. And some of these people are losing their lives over this because they believe, certain societies believe, with these people living in their society or closely outside of their society, it's bringing them a lot of bad luck and everything. So there's a lot of people losing their lives to this very day because people are being accused of witchcraft.
Now, is that all around the world? Is it in America, Canada? Is it?
Basically burgeoning countries such as India and in places like Africa. That's where it seems like that is going on more than anything. But again, you always hear rumors of places like New Orleans, and we know that witchcraft is being practiced. We know that the religion of Wicca, or the pseudo religion of Wicca, is probably the second fastest growing religion in the world outside of Islam. So we know that there is a great propensity for people wanting to believe that it is almost kind of like a back to nature movement as well too. It's kind of the response to the world around us and the religion around us as well too. It's kind of like a knee-jerk reaction that people are going back to more simpler times. And also the good thing about Wicca and witchcraft is that the individual practitioner is in charge of their beliefs. So you see a lot of a la carte mixing going on as well too, with the Greco-Roman elements, with the Egyptian elements, with pulling in pieces of Native American philosophies. So you can really develop your own religion over this earth-based belief system.
Gina, I see you shaking your head and agreeing. And you've done some studying of Wicca and talking with people. So what's your take on some of what Ron's saying?
The latter part of what he just said is definitely, I pull into Wicca as well. That goes hand in hand for me with the laws of attraction. I think that goes hand in hand for me because I don't necessarily, I can't say I don't believe in magic because I do, but that idea that I can, whip up a potion, as I air quote my fingers and, make something happen. Part of it more is the actual follow through of doing this spell. It presents a picture in my mind. So I came up with the ingredients I needed to make a protection spell to protect myself from negativity. Well, it's the process of doing this spell that actually creates that idea in my head that I just did a spell. Does that make sense?
Stephen, we are so incredibly lucky to have Gina on board. Gina, let me just tell you that this is our second show together already, and your insights are so right on. And that's something that I did definitely want to cover as well, too. So when we think about magic and we think about almost like alchemy and this kind of working with potions and everything like that, whenever we get to the age of the Renaissance and when we start getting into the Enlightenment, what you said is absolutely what was going on. It was that the practitioner could almost envision something and it was then projected onto the world. So there was this element of intellectualism involved. There was this element of allowing your frequencies to go out into the world and change the vibration around you. That's really what was going on. We talk about the laws of attraction. This kind of goes along with the lines of witchcraft and kind of not. But we have a very famous philosopher in the Middle Ages named Boethius, and he believed in this attraction, this gravity, that if you love somebody, that gravity that you have in you could actually hold the gravity of love from that other person. So that in itself was a love spell. You see how that works, but it's a very intellectual type of thing that you are causing this to happen, but you don't need the eye of Newt and the wing of bat or anything like that,
Not saying you don't.
You know, yeah. Look, I'll tell you what. Whenever I do a love spell, I still use all that stuff.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think that's what, again, for me personally, again, it's the idea of like the Wicca religion. It's what you said earlier too. It's nature. Feeling that energy that pulls up into me, that gives me, what I feel is my magical feeling. And what you said too is that idea of a la carte. That was 100% perfect, spot on. That's exactly what works for me personally, is picking those parts of those different things that work for me, that make me, that I can actually project it. Like one of my biggest things is when I go to work, the negativity that is the cesspool of my job, I have to raise my shields, and I literally do these small spells where I know when I go to work that day, I am pushing that negativity away from me. It's as simple as a gesture. No negativity. Nobody's going to bring me down. I put it in my shoe and I step on it all day long.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the tenets of Buddhism, like we spoke about before too, is just bringing goodwill into the world. You don't even have to say anything to anybody. You can just walk throughout the world and have, good-natured intentions. And those intentions themselves will change the atmosphere around you.
Mm-hmm.
Karma.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So we deal with karma, which is a very Eastern type of philosophy, but then we also deal with things like grace, which is brought into it as well too, from a very Catholic point of view. But this is all mixed up into that kind of melting pot about what spirituality actually is. And a lot of people will think that Christianity is monolithic. And for the first 300 years of the religion, it definitely was not. It was pick or choose. And I mean, we were dealing with all kinds of Eastern philosophies as well. And a lot of research has been done and a lot of speculation has been made. And there's been a lot of conjecture that, what do we do with these lost years of Jesus between the time of finding him in the temple and then to the time we find him doing his ministry at the age of around 30 years old? He was doing something, and there's been all these kind of theories that he may have went to India and learned, Hindu philosophies. And I love this idea. I truly do. Especially when we look at some of the books in the Bible that were not put into our canon, and we have to understand that this kind of stuff doesn't start getting fermented until the Council of Nicaea in about 325. That's whenever the books are starting to be chosen. There were so many different Bibles out there, so many different types of readings to be done. And when we think about the Gospel of Thomas, which is really, of course, it is a Gnostic type of literature, but there's a lot of very telling things there as well too, because the apostles, whenever Jesus says that he's going to be dying and he's going to be leaving them, the apostles start getting a little scared and they say, hey, Lord, how do we find you? And he says something very pertinent. He doesn't say you go to the temple. He doesn't say that you build a church. What he says that you do is you go out into the woods and you pick up a stone and I will be there. Or if you split a piece of wood, I will be there. Now, of course, that takes the centralized power of Christianity completely off. That's now on the people. If we would think that at least some of these things in the Gospel of Thomas was true, and there's really no reason why they wouldn't be, because it seems to be a collection of just simply Jesus' sayings. There's no narrative whatsoever. It's just a list of sayings. That's something like Jesus would say. If you want to find me, go out in the world. And isn't it interesting that after the resurrection, Jesus doesn't appear in the temple. He appears out on a mountaintop. It is about this nature. It is about seeing God within the physical universe. That's what the whole thing. And it's, when we get to the 14th century, this is illuminated amazingly in the teachings of St. Francis of Assisi, who sees the moon as your sister and the sun as your brother. And the idea that all of nature, that God has written two books. He's written the Bible, and he's also written this book of nature, where you can see the divine in there as well, too. What we have in Wicca, which is basically Gardnerian kind of influences, Gardner kind of, brings all this stuff up. But when we see in the very root of really all of these kind of religions that have a pagan origin, the route to the divine, the way to the divine, has always been in the natural world. It has been in the cycle of nature. It has been in the way, a woman gives birth. There is so much magic in the world that we now, in a scientific age, has kind of explained away. But there is still magic out there if we only look for it. And Gene, I think that's the case. I think that whenever we talk about a la carte, a lot of this kind of stuff makes sense. We want to try to get to, in this program that we have, we try to get to the root of everything, where, get to the nature of all these kind of questions. We have to pull in elements from all over the world, from all different types of belief systems. Once we do that, and once we say, this is not going to be ethnocentric, or this is not going to be all about me, but we're going to allow all these other types of influences to come on in, and we're going to kind of sort through it. Well, we kind of then take off our blinders, and then we can see in ways that we've never seen before.
Absolutely.
I got two things based on what you said, Ron. One, you mentioned, and I know Colin and I have gone back and forth on this, but you mentioned the vibration and the frequencies. And that's something I've been toying with a bit. Obviously, I'm not like some big scientist, but I enjoy learning about quantum physics, quantum type of science. And I know Colin doesn't like the whole quantum theory with Bigfoot, but I latched onto it right away because I'm like, oh, that helps make a lot of sense. And the frequency, and this leads into my second thing, the frequency thing is still something I am interested in, because they talk about our universe has a frequency. And it's been ringing like a bell since the Big Bang. And we have frequencies. So obviously your frequency could be a little bit different than my frequency. So there's something there when you start talking about aura, and you talking about attraction, or, pushing people away.
Yes.
And that's something that I want to learn more about and maybe bring up more in the future.
Well, sure. Now, the very last book that I wrote that is not paranormal, but the last book that I wrote, because I've been in the human services field for most of my adult life, and I've been dealing with people in counseling, and I've been dealing with people that have been through a lot, socioeconomic standings, drug and alcohol abuse, very painful things that people have been through. And I thought I would start delving into the very nature of what suffering means. And I have wrote a book called The Harmonics of Humanity. And as I'm studying this idea of frequency, it makes perfect sense to me. It does. And this comes into the idea of magic as well, too. Whenever we talk about in the Renaissance and in the Enlightenment, that people could imagine something and project this onto the world. What we're finding is, and like you had said, Stephen, everything vibrates. That's a proven fact. We don't have to go metaphysical on this. We just have to know that things have vibrations to them. There was the idea of the music of the spheres. Even the stars make sounds. That was a very ancient concept, but now we do know that there is music out there in the universe, and things make sounds, and there's different frequencies. So my point is, and of course, this isn't me coming to some sort of revelation on my own, but this is looking at different religions and different philosophies. Is it possible that one of the reasons we have disease and we have war is because we have refused to recognize other people's frequencies, and we have stepped out of that frequency that is the natural frequency, or the God frequency that a lot of people talk about? Once you step out of that frequency, you have now become out of ease. You've become diseased, you see, and now you are struggling to adapt to a world where you were meant to vibrate with, but now you've stepped out of that vibration, and now all these kind of bad things are happening. I think there is truth to this. I looked at different studies. There was a study out of, I think it was out of Berkeley, as a matter of fact. It was a scientist that took two unlike objects, sat them next to each other, and he found out in a period of time, if they sat next to each other long enough, their vibrational frequencies would tune up, which is really kind of exciting. And I wrote one of my chapters in there about interpersonal relationships, especially whenever it comes to marriage counseling. When people sit down and they start talking and they start complaining and all this kind of stuff, nobody just sits there to be in the moment with their partner. Allow everything to kind of sync up, and then we'll worry about all these other kind of things later. It seems like when we talk about money, or we talk about people not being appreciated or part of a priority, the main reason that is because we are caught up in other things around us. We talk about money. The money is the major reason why people get divorced. People talk about jobs, not having enough time. Well, the reason for that is that's a very unnatural state for human beings to be in. This is not natural for us to be in. What is natural for us to be in is outside, enjoying the sun, laughing and giggling, and writing poetry and all that kind of stuff. That's who we are as human beings. But we've had to adapt it simply so we can live here. We're the only species on the planet that has to pay to live on this planet. And people are getting rich, people are getting poor, but we are forgetting that we're part of something greater than who we are. And after we pass away, if we were billionaires, it doesn't matter. If we were poor, it doesn't matter, because we have not left our imprint on this vibration. And that is why I think what the meaning of life is all about. Getting in tune and keeping those strings vibrating, and that would help out everybody else around us. I truly believe that is for a fact.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to you in a second, Gina. But growing up, I was introduced obviously to the Force, and that has
That's
always
right.
struck me as more religious than some of the religions I've known.
Sure.
Something that binds the whole galaxy together. And then the funny thing is, nowadays, if you go back and listen to what Yoda said in Empire Strikes Back, it sounds a lot like some of the stuff they're discovering in quantum physics.
Absolutely.
Working with. So it's interesting. And about the vibrational and magic, there's a story that Gina can tell about how we met and what brought us together.
Nice.
And it's very magic based.
So again, I quickly about myself, I feel like I have that vibrational frequency that just naturally emits out to people, because I can go to anywhere, any party, any group, any part of town, and I can fit right in. That's how I've always been. And that's just something that I'm accustomed to. And a lot of times people are like, I don't understand. How can you fit in with that crowd? But because I'm a happy person. I want to have a good time. I'm not here to, be like, a jerk or anything. Anyway, with that being said, I was having a rough moment. I was living out in Geneva in the snow belt. My car had been buried in the snow for the 100th time that winter. And I was everything in me was whirling and swirling, and all of my energy was coming out. And I was crying because my car was covered and I had to go to work. So I had went to kick at my car, but I'd never even like made it because I wound up like almost doing a backflip and landing on my back in the snow. And so I laid there in the snow with all of this like crazy emotion vibrating and swirling in me. And I yelled out to the universe, you know what? I'm really tired of this shit. I want to have a good life. And you know what? This is where I realized, and I said this, I yelled this out to the universe. I'm a good person and I need somebody. I want somebody. No, I demand somebody that's worthy of me. And I pushed my arms out and I felt like this like energy or like, something shot out of me across the yard. And I swear it was not even like a day or two later that Stephen messaged me on that dating website.
Yeah. See, whenever you explain that, and you explain it so eloquently, I actually kind of messed it up a little bit about that, because the conclusion that I've come up with, talking about all these things about, frequencies and everything, you cannot find anybody until you first allow yourself to be happy. And you have to be worthy. You have to feel that yourself is worthy enough to be loved. That has been my problem my entire life. I've never felt myself as a priority or as somebody that's worthy of that kind of stuff. And I think that's why I get in such bad relationships. The idea is that you are indeed worthy. You are worthy to find somebody to love you as much as you love them. And that once that frequency, it tunes in, that's where we get the idea of soulmates from, because you are intrinsically attached to that other person on a level that is not physical, it's not mental. But once you get that spiritual rooting in there, really nothing on heaven above or hell below could put that asunder. That's very true.
So
Yeah.
Ron, doing the research for the book and stuff, did you find anybody that is a Wicca or practices some sort of witchcraft that you could ask for a love potion number 9?
No. I think that the potions are all inside of us. That's the thing. I would not. I have no problem downing a quart of anything somebody gives me. But no, I was coming out of a very, very bad relationship whenever I did decide to write this book. It was either write the book or, go into a deep depression. And it was one of those things where it became eye-opening, everybody has baggage, everybody has trauma and toxicity in their lives. But the way to get rid of that stuff, and this is a very religious point of view too, in nearly all religions around the world, the best way to get away from that is simply forgive it. You forgive yourself, you forgive everything that happened. Whenever that happens, is you take control of that situation. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's a power over something that you thought was greater than who you were. Once you step in there and say, I'm going to take ownership of this, I'm not going to let it control me anymore. And whoever has done me wrong, I forgive them. That thing slowly starts disintegrating like the Wicked Witch of the West. That it truly does. This is almost a philosophy that I have to deal with for a while. This is something that's not magic and happens overnight. But again, Gina, I think what you said is it's hard to define magic. But at the end of the day, I truly believe there's magic in every single person. And that magic is very powerful. Look, it's hard to explain the love between a father and his child or a mother and its child. It seems magical. Things are magical whenever we talk about them. There's miracles out there and happens and everything. But I like the idea that magic still exists in this world. There are things that we simply cannot define, not control. That something is out there that we cannot put our human fingers on it, but it still defines who we are and it still infiltrates our lives. And if we allow it to tune into us, that can make the world better for everybody.
So let me ask Colin, Mr. Skeptic, what's your take on witches, witchcraft and magic?
Well, really what it comes down to is the term witch as we know it today, and touched on this earlier, really just was a weapon against uppity women, to be completely honest. It was a tool by people in power to put down women who didn't fit the gender roles of the time. Magic, I don't I don't see anything but anecdotal stories that support the idea that magic exists. I don't buy into any of it. I I I don't necessarily even see the value in believing it either. I mean, you guys, I'm not going to stop you guys, and I'm not going to really push back too hard on it. I don't see it myself.
Well, let me ask this, Colin. We've talked about this. The definition, who was it, Asimov or Bradbury, one of those guys, any sufficient advanced technology appears as magic to those that don't understand it. And I've kind of argued that before with quantum physics, that we're learning and discovering lots of new science and things that we would have thought impossible or magical. For example, the connection of photons that they can separate and put miles apart, and yet one will react. If you put heat on one, the other one reacts as if it had heat put on it, which seems magical. So I could push back and argue that magic is still just science we don't understand, that there still could be some basis in science, we just don't know about it.
Write that down, Stephen. I think that is magic is ... science we don't understand.
It's not. It's not my original quote.
But again, like I don't think I was clear enough. I guess I don't see the value in using the term magic, because fine, I'll sure I won't argue there, I guess, but really what.
I lost him.
Down to is why then call it magic? What's that's happening that we don't really have an explanation for yet? Where's the value in saying, well, it's magic? And I don't see why.
Okay, I could give you that, but it's a useful term to, if nothing else, it's a useful term to explain science or tech that we don't understand.
Is it useful though? Because when you say magic, it conjures literally these ideas of wizards casting spells and old crones over a boiling pot. That's not really worthwhile adding into the conversation when you're talking about the cutting edge of brand new science.
That's true.
I don't think it's worth using in that context, honestly. I think all it does is the people who already don't really trust science, it's just going to prevent them from like even bothering to understand it at all.
Ron, you're muted.
Yeah, but the conjuring by the crones over a cauldron is really the precursor to the pharmaceutical companies. Even at that time, that would have been a way for them to interact on the world and make people better and cure problems and things like that. So I think everything is going to be magic until it's named by science.
Yeah. And arguably, go ahead, Colin.
All I was going to say was sure, but you say magic and that's not where people are going to go. They're not going to a lot of people won't understand the connection, like the origins of alchemy leading to modern understandings of chemistry and that type of stuff. Like a lot of people don't know that. Most people, if you go out on the street, can't even tell you where certain countries on the planet are, much less some of these like some slightly more complicated historical things. Like I'm talking about the usage of the word when you're talking about the general public. I think all it does is muddle things up.
I can see that there's so much baggage and so much connotation when you say magic that people can't separate it from taking an aspirin and not having a headache.
But I'm also going to throw my 2 cents in there. I think the other part of it, and this is what I bring to the group, is that separate that magic word from science. I don't disagree. I think 100% that magic is science that we don't understand yet. But then I'm also going to go back to the people believe in magic, even if it's not the Harry Potter wave your wand type of stuff, because it goes back to religion. People need something to believe in and hope for. Magic makes people feel good. The belief that I have the power to conjure up a spell. Again, for me personally, to conjure up that spell to protect me from the negativity out there in the world. Now, I learned how to raise my shields. That's the terminology I use, but I learned how to literally put up a defense over my mind and body to stop those people from getting in under my head. Whatever other term you want to call it, whether it's a mental ability or something I just learned to push people away, it's magic. I learned how to defend myself, and it makes me feel good to think that way. I've done magic, or to write a spell up and burn it and put it in my shoe, and then the boss that was at work did not do anything to, again, it made me feel powerful. The process of I created magic. It's not necessarily the science part of it. It's magic, just a feeling. Does that make sense? That's where my opinion, where I'm coming from with
No,
it.
and so let me ask this, throw this up. And I know we'd have different thoughts and viewpoints. If you thought that, wrote it down, put it in your shoe for the protection throughout the day, would we be able to tell from any of our viewpoints that it was magic that stopped it and protected you, or just you having the mindset and that, and again, and then arguably, is that having the mindset different from magic anyway? You know, that's the gray.
It's a very good
philosophy.
comment. Very good.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we can explain away from a psychological perspective and say it's wish fulfillment, it's self-fulfilling prophecies, all this kind of stuff. But whenever it gets to the nitty-gritty, whenever it's a personal experience, there's really no other way to explain it than magic. I feel that way as well too. We can look at textbooks and we can explain it, all that stuff, but whenever it happens to a person on an individual basis, that is magic to them.
Right.
And I agree with Colin though too, on the same side, which is that to call science that we don't know yet magic for the people out there in the world who, wear the bib overalls and chewing on their wheat and chasing Bigfoot in the woods and being an idiot towards them. I agree with Colin too. It's unfortunate because that it doesn't, again, everything, the magic, people filming aliens in the sky. I want people to take what we are talking about today and in all of our podcasts serious, because it's out there. I don't care what anybody else says. There's something else out there. And for anybody to think so big of themselves or so, arrogant to think that there isn't something else beyond what we see, it's ridiculous in my opinion. There
Yep.
something out there.
And again, it could go right back to everything we just said. Is it magic? Is it a quantum physics thing with another world? It could be both. Why can't they be one and the same?
Are any of you familiar with counting the hits and ignoring the misses?
Yes.
So the basic idea is, when you're looking, when you're doing something, kind of like burning the thing and then putting it in your shoe, it's in your head, and you're going to remember when it works more than when it doesn't. So I'm not saying it's not working for you. What I'm saying is more so I think that we are more programmed to remember, yes, I wore this blue shirt and then I saw a blue thing. And of course, that's got to be it. And ignoring all the times you wore that blue shirt and didn't see a blue thing. Like it sticks in your head when it works a lot better than it sticks in your head when it doesn't. And I don't really want to push too hard back because it's clearly something very personal to you, Gina. And I don't want this to come up to become an argument and really a fight. I just wanted to bring that up as well.
But that's, part of what we do here is express our ideas and thoughts without being a personal attack. We don't, everybody has their own thoughts. That's why there's the four of us, so we all know we all have different thoughts, and certain subjects will be completely different with opposite Hollywood squares. And that's absolutely fine. But again, especially with magic, you can't prove it doesn't exist just as much as you can't prove it does exist.
Sure, but I
so-
also can't prove there isn't a teacup like sitting on the moon right now. That doesn't mean it's the case. The
but
unfortunate
But like I always argue
proof
back with
here-
you, it doesn't mean it's not the case either.
But
You can't go either
listen,
way.
when you're talking about reality, you have to, when you make a claim, the burden of proof is on you. It is not
True.
on the persons that says, I don't buy what you're saying.
But this is something I don't know how you could prove.
Yeah. Reality is very
That's-
subjective, and my reality is full of magic. That's my reality. You say,
Yes.
so a lot of people feel that way. So if you are going to look at me and you're going to analyze me, how things operate in my world revolves around the idea that there's something magical about it. So you can explain it away with science, but I see science just as magic in my world. You see? So it's very subjective on how we
Yes.
see things.
And that's not even taking into account all the people that would argue that we're really living in a matrix of simulation.
Yeah.
Just Father, what you said was, I don't know what else it could be. That's the argument from ignorance, and that's it's not a good argument. It's a fallacious argument that
Colin, you died.
flat out just
Magic rears its head again.
to be completely honest, I might not be the most eloquent in this, but saying I don't know what this could be besides this, or I don't know what this could be, so I'm going to say this, is just bad reasoning.
Okay, then instead of saying it's reasoning, this is what I feel. Then that's a better way
Sure.
of stating it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just more like pushing back on your phraseology there because you phrased it like an argument instead of this is my take or these are my thoughts or feelings right now.
Okay, I could go with that. So before we delve, because I'm sure magic conversation, we can continue this through many of our other topics. But let me ask Ron, while you were investigating the book, looking over the historical records and things, did you come across any accounts? Because I mean, I look at it, oh, that person's a witch, go into the woods. They'll help your headache. They will help birth control, or if someone fall in love with you. That would have been magic back 1600, whatever. But those were witches. We don't think of them that way now. So was there any accounts that you ran across that you couldn't explain through our lens of what we've learned with modern science?
And I will have to play devil's advocate here and take Colin's side. Whenever you look at it from a 21st century perspective, there's really very little that we could say could not be explained away. The culture and the milieu in which these witches were developing all would have been mostly pre-scientific, even whenever we get up into the realm of the Enlightenment. And there was still a lot of alchemy going on in the Enlightenment as well, too. It was dealing with, with scientific bases that we know pretty clearly today. But as we go forward, there are scientists right now that are experimenting with things and observing things that they cannot explain either. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there is that bit of magic going on as well, too. We as human beings like to put things down and pin them down and examine them with a fine-tooth comb, and we label them. And once that happens, we have power over them. That's something else that we have subjugated to ourselves. But there's always going to be that element out there that we can never quite explain away. And that, to me, is the magic of the universe. One thing that I did find out in the conclusion of writing this book is that witches are sexy as hell. And I will tell you this. They are the chaos. They are the antithesis of the masculine. So we talk about the Jungian animus and anima. You know, they are this power out there that we men cannot control. And we have to be invited to be privy into this kind of conjuring of the women. That's what I've taken off of this. And I think my next relationship will be with a witch. And if anybody of our listeners out there has a magic potion for me, I will drink it right here.
There you go, ladies. Whenever you go to hear Ron or see us at a conference or something,
right.
Wear your witch uniform or your witch outfit.
Yes. And I think that when we look at the way that witches are portrayed, you know, even from the Iliad, the whole way up to, you know, the pre-Raphaelites and the artistic representations of Hecate and everything, it's these women who are the embodiment of what, you know, seduction would mean. But they're not trying to seduce you. That's just who they are. That is their, you know, we don't have any power of them. They're outside of our reach. And any type of attraction that we have to them is rebuffed, you know, it's not requited. And whenever they turn their attentions towards us, then that is the magic that kind of draws us in to get back to everything again. So yeah, I find the idea of the witch to be very, very empowering for women, and it throws the patriarchal society a little bit off kilter a little bit. We don't know what to do with these people. You know, they have knowledge that we don't, and at the end, we are still relying on that woman at the edge of the hedge who can help us out in ways that we cannot take care of ourselves.
So you mentioned it's mostly women.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've all seen the warlocks and so have there been male witches? Were men tried as witches like women?
Well, sure. Up in Salem, two men were actually executed as witches, you know. So that does happen. And it's usually men that talk back against the establishment. They're really not doing anything. That's what happens. But three of the most famous witches that we have are the three magi that visited Jesus. You know, the word magi is where we get the word magician from, the word magic from as well, too. And they were able to discern whenever Jesus was going to be born by looking at the stars and charting patterns and everything like that. So they were looking at the natural world to show what it was prophesizing was going to happen. So the first people that recognized that Jesus was going to be born was a pagan people who were using the idea of the natural world exposing themselves to the divine. So that was really kind of the first introduction we get to witches who were men.
Could they have been aliens?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to say probably. I'm going to just say no, but
yeah, I'm going to say no too.
Yeah.
Before we go, because we're running out of time, Ron, you mentioned this is the last book in your On series.
Yes.
So tell us briefly about that series. What are the other books that you've written?
Well, so I wrote a book called The Unexplained World of the Chestnut Ridge. I think it's about 6 or 7 years ago. So really not that long ago, but yeah, long enough to kind of like look back in retrospect. And it took a lot out of me. It was my research. It was delving into other research about this area where I lived in. And I thought, you know, that's a lot of work. I don't think I'm ever going to write a book again. And then my daughter, who was really into mermaids, she said, do mermaids exist? And I said, I don't know. I never thought about it. And she said, you write about all that Bigfoot crap. Why don't you see if you can find out if mermaids exist? So I researched it for about a week and I said, there's a lot of stuff here. So then I wrote a book on mermaids. And then I wrote a book on Wild Man and on Dog Man, on ghosts, which Colin was a huge part of, on vampires, which he wrote was part of as well too. And then I have on aquatic monsters of the Great Lakes, and then I have on witches.
Nice.
Wow.
All right. So and this next talk is about the witches.
It is.
What other future talks do you have coming up?
Well, I have a lot of talks coming up, a lot of ghosts. I do a lot of things at Hillview Manor. So I'm going to be leading a lot of ghost tours. I have a werewolf talk coming up and a vampire talk coming up as well, too. You know, keep our fingers crossed. Some of these are out of state. But I'm hoping that I'm going to do a talk on fairies at Hillview Manor, which is in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. But I'm hoping everything goes okay, that I can start doing this talk elsewhere. Because when we talk about fairies, we necessarily have to talk about vibrations as well too, Gina. So that kind of brings everything full circle.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, and also I looked it up. It was Arthur C. Clarke that said the magic is just science that we don't understand. I lost a little nerd cred there with the wrong quote. So before we go, anybody got any last words of wisdom or thoughts on anything? Yep, there we're all blank.
I actually wait. I have a question to Ron. The Hillview talks that you do, is that what you mentioned on Facebook about? Come join me at Hillview for
It is.
paranormal and dancing.
Oh, well, no, we're going to be doing a vampire ball up there, coinciding with Bram Stoker's birthday. So this will be in November. And we're going to do a ball up there that I will do a vampire talk, and then we'll do some other kind of, some things going on as well too. But whenever it comes to fairies, I'm going to be doing a talk up there. I believe it's in July, about a week and a half after midsummer. And we're going to be talking about fairies because that's traditionally whenever they come out to dance and play and everything. So
nice. All right, I'm going to name drop a bit here. You mentioned Dracula and Bram Stoker's birthday. There was a sequel to Dracula written by Bram Stoker's great nephew, and the ghostwriter co-writer was J.D. Barker. I've actually gotten to speak with J.D. Barker, so there's a name drop.
This was one of my favorite times ever on any program. I absolutely love this.
Yeah, I like talking like this with you guys.